Hey, what's up? This is the Samsung F13 and this is a budget segment smartphone from Samsung. It has a lot of good things and some demerits also, and we'll be discussing in this video. So let's start. Before we start our video, let's give a quick shout out to our today's sponsor, Mars2. Mars2 is a group of smartphone shops located at the 3rd floor of Satarkan complex in Kumilla. No matter which smartphone you need, they have all of the brands covered. You can buy your desired smartphone from them at a fair price. Details about them are in the description below. So Samsung launched this device with a budget price tag and it kind of feels like a budget smartphone. The entire build is made out of plastic and we have the Gorilla Glass 5 protection on the front. Though it's made out of plastic, it kind of feels good. I mean, it's not that premium, but it gives a good feelings on the hand. You can have a better grip and the edges are smooth, so no complaints about the design. I really like the minimalist design on the camera cutout. On the back panel we have this texture, which is a wavy texture, and this reflects the light, which looks kind of cool, I guess. Many people may like this, but I'm not very impressed with this kind of design, but it marks the fingerprints quite better, so no complaints about that. Now this phone comes with 3 color types: the waterfall blue, sunrise copper, and the night sky green. And this here is the night sky green version, and I kind of like this. Though it has a 6.6-inch display, it is on the bigger side of a smoke thanks to the slightly thicker bezels. Now this phone weighs about 207 grams and it's kind of feel heavy, I guess. All the credit goes to the 6000 milliamps battery. We're coming about that in just a few minutes. Now let's talk about the display. We already mentioned that it's a 6.6-inch display, and this is an LCD display, not the IPS, but the color tuning is really close to IPS, and it's obviously a Samsung's panel, so it's better than the average one. Now if I talk about the display brightness, there is adequate amount of brightness on the display, though it's not enough for outdoor readability, but in most scenarios this is just fine. If you ever experienced an AMOLED panel earlier, this display is not for you. Like, if you like the deep blacks and the contrast that AMOLED provides, this display is not for you by any means. But the display quality is really good for who haven't used any Samsung's display panels. This is really an upgrade for them. The colors on the display really pops, and the colors is really vibrant, close to IPS, but not that great obviously, but not that much to complain about that. For the display section, this thing really does a good job, but AMOLED is preferred for this price tag. But you know, smartphone market is unstable currently, so can't complain about that. Now ugliest part on the display is the V notch on the top, and we really don't expect a 2022 smartphone with a V notch on the top. They could do it the right way, but they didn't. So out of the box you get One UI 4.1 based on Android 12, and this thing is supposed to have 4 years of software update with an additional year of security patches. But one thing you'll be missing out, the hardware integration of the Knox security system, so that's a downgrade from the A series smartphones obviously. Under the hood, this thing packs up a Exynos 850, which has 8nm processors, and this chipset kind of leans toward the efficient side of chipsets, but it's an older chipset, and performance here is not that great. We'll be talking about it in a few minutes. In terms of SIM slot, this thing has triple slots, and you can use 2 4G SIM cards with a SD card simultaneously. Now in terms of I/O ports, this thing has the beloved 3.5mm headphone jack and USB-C, the main microphone, the speaker, and we also have a secondary microphone, which is a noise cancellation microphone. So no complaints about the ports and I/O. One thing I really didn't like that they have integrated the fingerprint into the lock key or side key, what Samsung says, but you know, this thing limits the functionality of the lock button, so I'm not very much impressed with this approach. They had to go with this because this is an LCD panel, not an AMOLED, so no under display fingerprint this time. Now let's talk about the camera sides. Now this thing has a 50 megapixel main sensor, the 5 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Now in this budget segment, I would say the camera is on the better side, and the 50 megapixel main sensor can shot really sharp and detailed photos in adequate lighting. The sensor obviously isn't that big, so here are some image samples coming out of this smartphone. So the image sample coming out of this smartphone is really great. The colors are natural, but Samsung manages to pop this color a little bit more, and the images are pleasant. The dynamic range is also good, and for the price tag, I guess this is the best camera you can get. In terms of night photos, it doesn't have any dedicated night mode, but in low light it really does a good job. I'm really surprised how Samsung managed to get this kind of shots at this kind of darker scenarios. Now they have also included a 5 megapixel ultra wide sensor, and that's really a great touch because most of the company don't offer an ultra wide camera for this price segment, but Samsung offered it. Huge thanks to Samsung. The ultra-wide images are good in proper exposure of light, but there's a good amount of distortion, as you can see. In nighttime, the ultra-wide camera cannot help you anyways. Now the other camera is kinda useless, so we won't be discussing about that. Let's look at the video side. For the video side, this thing can record 1080p videos up to 30 fps. There is no other frame rate option, and there is almost no stabilization, you can see. Now on this V-notch, there is a selfie camera, which is an 8 megapixel sensor, and this thing performs good. So what's left? The main focus of this smartphone. This thing not only have a 4000 mAh battery, not the 4500 mAh battery, not a 5000 mAh battery, but this thing packs up a 6000 mAh battery, which is huge. And this thing has contributed to the weight of this smartphone, obviously, but this thing actually nails. I guess the targeted customer of this smartphone would really like this smartphone because that longer battery life is really helpful for those people. And in my use case, I can say that you cannot kill this smartphone within a day. It will last at least 1.5 days, and at best it can go up to 2 days. So no complaints about the battery backup. This thing really nails everything. Now let's come to the biggest down point of this thing is the performance side. We have talked earlier that this thing comes with a Exynos 850, which is kinda efficient chip, but it's not a performance focused chipset, so you can expect that serious performance tasks like gaming and other stuff's heavy usage. You can't expect that from this thing, but in day-to-day tasks with the One UI, this thing really flows. But I have seen some occasional lags and jitter while cruising through the UI, so that's a down point. So if you're a gamer and a heavy user, I would not recommend this phone. This phone is made for those people who actually want to cruise through the social media and some light usage. Now what's my final verdict about this phone? Like in this price tag, this thing has really good cameras, a bigger battery, and the display is also good, but an AMOLED display is always welcome, and the software support and One UI is really good. Now on the downside, I would say this is an LCD panel, not an IPS, though the colors are well tuned, but this is not an IPS display. The fingerprint isn't that responsive. In terms of physical fingerprint, this fingerprint is kind of slow. This thing packs up a 15-watt charger, and this thing supports only 15 watts charging. So considering that 6000 milliamps battery, 15 watt is kind of slow. Well, do I'm recommending this phone? Like this 4 and 64 GB version of this smartphone cost around 24,000 TKs, and the 628 gigs version cost around 28,000 TKs. So for this price tag, I guess the last year A32 is a great choice because this thing has a better display. Like this is an AMOLED display, this is a brighter display, and you get under display fingerprint and hardware integration of Knox security, slim bezels, better camera. Only downside on the A32 is that you'll get slightly less software updates, and it has a 5000 milliamps battery. Apart from that, I guess the Samsung A32 is a better option than the Samsung F13. You can check my dedicated review for the A32 on the pop-out menu. So this is it. Follow me on social from the links in the description below. Check out Mars 2 if you want to make any purchase. I'll see you soon with some new interesting videos. Till then, stay good, keep good, and keep doing incredible things. And yes, of course, keep watching Incredible.